Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about crypto and economics and have a lot of fun doing so. As always, a free way you can support this channel. Hit the like button, leave a comment in the comment section for the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on that notification button. But okay, without further ado, here's what I want to talk about in this channel. I want to take a step back because I know it's been brutal, especially with altcoins, but with Bitcoin. The feeling of just this impending doom always looming over the horizon, because we know Bitcoin in bear markets goes down 85%, 80%, whatever it is. And so there is a sense of fear. There's always a sense of doom, especially when things are chopping along and putting in lower highs and lower lows. And then one day out of nowhere, Bitcoin explodes and you forget about all of the torture. But this range has been rough. And so we've talked a lot about that. I just want to take a step back and focus on a couple of things, remind you of a couple of things, especially if you're new to this channel. These are things that I haven't talked about in a while. Yeah, I've talked about it a ton throughout the bear market and in 2021, but things that have me long-term mega bullish on Bitcoin. And I'm just going to say this up front. Chances are you are not bullish enough on Bitcoin on a long enough timeline. Any price target that you throw out there is technically possible, not even technically, it will most likely hit. Because you look at the US dollar, you see that chart where the US dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. There is only one way for Bitcoin to go with a finite supply of $21 million and the extent of global adoption that has already happened, and the fact that we are still early. We are still early. You know, there's going to be an arms race eventually that comes with Bitcoin, and we're on the early side of that. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. You know, we're going to look back at the early 20s as a time, we're just going to look at this time and wonder, like, I could have bought as much Bitcoin as my heart desired without any restrictions, without any limitations, because that day, the day when that's happened, when that comes to an end, that day is coming to an end. You can go on Coinbase and, within your means at least, buy as much Bitcoin as you want. Not nation states, but individuals, no matter your net worth, you could buy as much Bitcoin as you want. And that's not always going to be the case. And so let me take a step back really quickly and just, I want to highlight to you a couple of key dates in Bitcoin's history, just to remind you, just there's some times that I'm tempted to feel like there's some kind of divine intervention here. The timing with Bitcoin, the timing with specific things with Bitcoin, it's just so amazing. It's like, how in the world, like, if Bitcoin was created at any different time in history, like maybe if it was created 20 years earlier or 50 years earlier, I mean, it would technology in any way. Anyway, if it was created 20 years earlier, would it have caught on? Would there have been the kind of adoption? I just don't know. The timing with Bitcoin is really fascinating. And then if it was created 20 years later, I just don't know. I think it was created at the perfect time. And so what was that date? That was January 3rd, 2009. So you rewind a few months from that. I remember I got married on August 29th, 2008. And we went on our honeymoon, went to Seattle. It was wonderful. Mount Rainier is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I love it. And then I remember we flew back. We were there for about 2 weeks, and we flew back and started seeing all over the news about, you know, in the airport, we looked at the TVs and we saw Lehman. Something's going on with this. I thought it was Lehman, you know, Lehman Brothers at the time. Something's going on. We didn't understand what was going on, but we looked at each other. We both looked at the screens and looked at each other, and we just had this feeling like something significant is happening right now. And that led, I mean, that didn't lead to the great financial crisis. That was already in the middle of the great financial crisis, but that led to a radical shift in monetary policy, a shift that I don't think we're ever going to be able to reverse. And this was scandalous at the time, guys. $800 billion bailouts. That was insane at the time. We were all just like, that is way too much money. That's almost $1 trillion. And now we hand out $800 billion like candy, and the federal debt goes up by $1 trillion like every 3 or 4 months. We're at $35 trillion of federal debt right now. And so there was that bailout, but then there was the introduction of quantitative easing, which only accelerated the debasement of the US currency. And then fast forward to 2020. This is a really fascinating time in Bitcoin's history as well, because we had the COVID crash of 2020. And then if you look at M2 money supply charts, you'll see this rapid spike in the increase of M2 money supply in response to the COVID crash. The Federal Reserve and the federal government panicked, and they introduced heavy amounts of stimulus that makes $800 billion look like nothing on multiple occasions. And then quantitative easing and rates back down to zero, and M2 money supply skyrocketed. And it was the week of the COVID crash, believe it or not, that the amount of Bitcoin available on exchanges peaked. It was that week. It was March of 2020. And ever since then, the amount of Bitcoin available that you can buy has been declining. And this is getting more and more rapid. Now, around the time that Bitcoin breaks its all-time high, you see old wallets, long-term holders start to unload. So in 2024, especially since that March peak, there has been a little bit of unwinding, but the general trend is down. And so it's going to continue to go down until these exchanges actually run out of Bitcoin. And then maybe some random wrong person, person who's short-sighted decides, oh, hey, I have 10 Bitcoin. I'd like to sell my 10 Bitcoin on Coinbase. What's Coinbase going to do? They're either going to take that OTC and not make that available for the common retail customer, or they're going to be to sell it off, do like a lottery style, to where you could buy, 1/100th of a Bitcoin if you are lucky, if you win the lottery. Like I legitimately believe that a day like that is coming. And you got to think about this. All right, as of right now, as of 2023 at least, I Googled this before this video, there are 58 million millionaires in the world. And let's say 5 years from now, debasing of currencies, there's 100 million millionaires in the world. There are only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and there is going to be a day when the average person, or the average millionaire in this case, wakes up and realizes, I need to be owning Bitcoin. What if one day all 100 million of these millionaires decide, I want one Bitcoin? You know what the response is? Tough luck. You're not all going to get your hands on one Bitcoin. It is too late. There's just not enough supply. And then you factor that in with the spot Bitcoin ETFs, the fact that they've taken billions of dollars of Bitcoin off the table, and that will continue. You have MicroStrategy, you have nations now wanting to buy Bitcoin. The amount of supply, it may be a gradually thing now, but then it's going to be a very sudden thing, and there will be, I believe, a point of hyper Bitcoinization, where the value of the US dollar, as it's trending to zero, it just looks like Bitcoin's going up in a straight line. I am firmly convinced of that. And looking at the rest of the crypto market, there is nothing that's even close to taking Bitcoin's place as that option, as a superior option to fiat currencies, to gold. Gold is heavy and clunky. It's not easy to transport around the world. When gold's price increases, the mining supply increases. It is hard to mine, but the mining supply increases. You can't do that with Bitcoin. There is only one direction for Bitcoin, and that is up. And so any price target that you give me, $1 million Bitcoin one day, $1 billion Bitcoin one day, $1 trillion Bitcoin. I mean, bread would cost a lot of money at that time, but honestly, I mean, what's the dollar even going to be worth at that time? It's going to be worth very little, if not nothing. Maybe it'll even be dead. But anyway, food for thought. That is all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week. I will most certainly be seeing you in another video.